It's time to be the teacher and teach yourself how to write a script. If you have not yet watched the video on creating a logline and treatment, you'll want to do that now. That is the first step in creating a script. Once you've completed that video, you can come back to this one. But if you have watched that one, then you're on the right track, and it's time to talk about script writing. As we said in our last video, creating a script requires a lengthy rough draft process. You should never just sit down and write dialogue or description. You should first go through a brainstorming process. If you come up with great lines, you can write them down. You can keep a parking lot. That would be a journal where you write down those lines, or maybe a post-it pad filled with your ideas, or in this day and age, you could text message those ideas to yourself. But before you start creating dialogue, you'll want to create a working title, and most importantly, you'll want to create a theme. We discussed theme in the last video. This is the 5 to 9 words that sum up what you're trying to teach the audience. Every story should have a purpose. You should be trying to affect the people that watch your movie and make them feel a certain way, either agree with your theme or come up with some ideas of their own about your theme. So you'll definitely want to make sure that while you're writing your screenplay, you have that theme next to you. This theme should always be something that you're very passionate about. As we said in our last video, you should write a logline and a treatment. The treatment is sort of the essay form of your script, the document that will lead you through the process from scene to scene to scene. If you've read your treatment and you now have some ideas of how you'll turn your treatment into your screenplay, you may want to go in and flesh out those moments that will get your character from one place to another as he or she solves his or her problem. If you have some ideas of some of the scenes that you now want to include, you can go into your treatment and add some more sentences, or you could even add bulleted lists of some of the places that your character will go on his or her adventure to solve the problem. Formatting your script appropriately is a really big deal in the film industry. Screenplays must be submitted in the correct format, or the industry personnel you are pursuing will ignore them. The film industry has become kind of institutionalized, and you must show that you can follow rules, or you will not be taken seriously. A screenplay not only tells an actor what to say, but more importantly, what to do. Your character's dialogue supports the actions, and seeing a character do something is sometimes even more powerful than having him or her talk about it. Think of a scene as a unit of action. In each scene, you're going to want to say who the characters are, what the situation is, when the time of day is, where the action is taking place, and why your character is doing what he or she is doing. A screenplay is about your character solving a problem, and every scene should get your character closer to a solution, or in some cases, further away from that solution. And remember, every scene that you create should come back to your theme. Sometimes, if you don't know what to include in your screenplay, you should ask yourself, is it furthering my theme? Is it getting my character closer to or farther from a solution? If the answer is no, you know not to include it. If the answer is yes, then you know that this may be a great moment in your screenplay and something to explore. There are a number of templates and softwares that are designed to help you in the process of creating your screenplay. Many of these different templates can be found online. One of the best tools available to you are the programs that format the script for you in the appropriate way. One of these is called Adobe Story Plus. If you go to adobe.com and search out Story Plus, or simply Google Adobe Story Plus, you can get started and you can create a free account. Once you've created a free account, you can sign in, and it will take you to a desktop. This is where you'll save and create all of your projects. Another program that I like is Celtix. Celtix allows you to create a free account. Once you do and you'll log in, you'll see that you only have a 15-day free trial period. But wait, that's only for the online version. If you go to desktop in your account, You'll see that if you scroll down, there's a free version for you to download to your desktop. If you download that free version of Celtix, you can open up projects that you'd like to create from your desktop. You can create films, you can create audio-visual plays or theater plays. The great thing about a program like Storyfree or Celtix is when you're doing your project, it gives you the option to create the title page and to create it correctly. By putting in the information, such as the title of your screenplay, your name, and your contact information, when you print your script, it will all pop out in the appropriate place. A program like Celtix is all set up for you to write your script. You'll see that in the drop-down menu, it's ready to create your scene heading. What is a scene heading? Well, in script terminology, a scene heading in a script is also called a slug line. Each time your characters move to a different setting, a new scene heading is required. The slug line is always in capital letters, and slug lines are typed on one line with some words abbreviated, but all words in caps. You start with int or ext, that means interior or exterior. And then you say the place the scene is listed before the time of day when the scene takes place. The great thing about Celtix is it's ready to type your slug line in the appropriate format. If you go to your drop-down menu and select scene heading, you can just type IN and int will pop up. And same thing, if you hit an E, X will pop up. It's always interior or exterior because that's where a movie takes place, inside or outside. Next, we just need the location. Hospital, waiting room. Notice how my slug line is still in all capital letters. I didn't have to do anything. Celtix did it for me. Then I put the time of day. Normally, we either put AM, PM, midday, or evening. This lets the lighting designer know what the lighting is going to need to look like for this particular scene. Notice how the drop-down menu automatically changed to action when I hit the return key. This is because after a slug line, we put some description. Celtix refers to it as action, but really what we're going to be doing is describing our scene. When we're describing a scene, before any scene descriptions, make sure there's an empty space between your slug line and your scene description. Scene descriptions are typed across the page from left to right, margin to margin, and again, Celtix will put it in the appropriate format. Now, there are some rules to scene descriptions. Names of major characters are displayed in all capital letters the first time they are used in a description, and these names always use all capital letters in a dialogue heading. After the characters have been introduced, their names no longer need to be capitalized. So you can see this example here. Kathy sits at the end of the first row of plastic chairs. Kathy is capitalized. But look when we see Kathy again. It's not capitalized. This is very helpful in scripts because when someone's scanning a script to see who's in a scene, they just have to look to the scene descriptions to see the names in capital letters. Remember, people may be in a scene, but they may not say anything. But if it's a main character, then that person will be capitalized in those scene descriptions. Now, the names of minor characters that have no dialogue, like an extra, they are not capitalized in scene descriptions. So you can see here that when the man moans softly or the woman cradles a listless infant in her arms, there's no need to capitalize. That's not a major character. Now, effects that are not made by characters, those do need to be capitalized. You see how in the previous example the man moaned, but moans is not capitalized? That's because the man is responsible for making that noise. The director will tell the actor what to do. When a sound is made by something other than an actor, it needs to be capitalized. This is for the sound department because they'll go through and add many of those sounds in post-production. So we would say something like, a bell rings, and we would capitalize the word rings. Back in Celtix, you'll see that the scene description is pretty easy to type. A loud boom. Now, I'm the one who capitalized that sound. Celtix isn't so smart that it capitalizes a sound when it sees it, or is that hears it. Anyway, if I hit return or enter, you'll see that it puts a space. I can continue to write scene description, or if I hit enter again, it will allow me to create another slug line. But wait a minute, what about character dialogue? Well, let's go back and hit return. If we go up to our drop-down menu, it's time to switch to character. We put character before dialogue because character is about formatting and placing the name of the character who's about to speak. There are some rules about dialogue and how it's presented. Unlike plays and novels, dialogue in a screenplay is as short as possible. Dialogue is centered on the page underneath a character's name, which is always in all capital letters when used as a dialogue heading. So for example, here we see the doctor, and doctor is in all capital letters. And then we see his line underneath. I'm sorry, the doctor says. A big part of writing a script, especially for beginning writers, is cutting down unnecessary lines of dialogue. Also, don't forget about subtext. Create moments that require the audience to read between the lines. When writing your script, spell out 2-digit numbers like 22 and spell out personal titles like Mr. Don't hyphenate long words, breaking them up from one line to the next. Just make sure that it ends up on the next line. Celtix, again, will take care of all of that for you. Back in Celtix, I'm ready to put the name of the character who will be speaking. Celtix automatically capitalizes that character's name. Doctor. What can he say? I'm sorry. When I hit enter, Celtix is ready for the person who will be talking to the doctor. Kathy. And again, it puts that name in all capital letters. When I hit enter, no. When I hit enter again, it's ready for the next person who's going to speak. But wait a minute, what if Kathy's still talking? Well, go up to your drop-down menu and just switch it to dialogue. Celtix will do the work for you. Or, if you want more scene description, select action. Kathy lunges herself at the doctor. Oh, this is getting really dramatic. And now it's time to point something out. If you haven't figured it out already, scripts are very much about action and dialogue. Yes, after your slug line, you want to provide a moment of description where we get an idea of the general setting, but you want to spend more time saying what characters are doing. For example, here we know Dorothy is carrying a basket. Here we know that Toto is standing at attention with his ears perked up. Then, with your dialogue, make sure that you're not treating the audience like they're dumb. You want to use something called subtext. What that is instead of telling the audience exactly what's going on, you want to hint at it through the lines the characters say to one another. So, in this scene, we know that Dorothy is afraid, but she never looks at the audience and goes, I am afraid. That would be boring. Instead, she points out how scary the woods are, which is backed up by some action, a deep growl from the animals. And then she asks the Tin Man how much longer it will be before they're out of the forest. From those lines, we get an idea that Dorothy is afraid. She doesn't have to tell us. Instead, she shows us through her interactions and her actions. What other things do I need to know about writing a script? Well, there are things like parentheticals. Parentheticals are special instructions to the actor pertaining to the dialogue that follows. Generally, the use of parentheticals should be avoided. Know that if you write a parenthetical, the actor might ignore it or the director will omit it from the script. From reading your lines, I should already know how the lines should be read. You shouldn't have to tell me. If you absolutely must use a parenthetical, they are written in parentheses and under the name of the character speaking. If you describe the way a character looks or speaks before the dialogue begins or as it begins, again, this is typed below the character's name in parentheses. That's where they get the term parenthetical. Back in Celtix, you can see that if I wanted to go up to Kathy's name and add a parenthetical, I could hit enter, go to my drop-down menu, and select parenthetical. Notice how Celtix takes care of everything for me. So now I could say sobbing. Now we know that Kathy is sobbing as she yells no. Wow, this must be a really dramatic scene. Sometimes in a script, I may need to include voiceovers or off-camera dialogue. This is kind of like a parenthetical, but it's put next to the character's name. Character cues such as voiceovers or VO or off-camera or OC are placed right next to the character's name. Most of these lines are added in post-production. When a doctor is saying something off camera, usually it's done in a special lab called an ADR lab or Advanced Dialogue Replacement Lab, and that's usually done after the fact. Back in Celtix, I'm ready to finish my script. Let's have one more character speak. Up to my drop-down menu, select character, and let's give that character a name, Victor. And let's have Victor speak in a voiceover. Kathy knew that Band-Aids could never heal her pain. And maybe let's have Kathy make one more comment. See, oh, look at that. Kathy's name is ready to go. If I hit return, Celtix puts the name there for me. Why did you take my Band-Aids? Great. It's time to print our script. Just so you know, scene heading, action, character, dialogue, parenthetical are the most popular selections from the Celtix drop-down menu. When you're ready to print, all you have to do is go to print, and we're going to print this one as a PDF so you can see what it looks like. Open in PDF Preview. Look at that. Celtix prints my script perfectly formatted. I could print this out and send it to a Hollywood director, and maybe he or she would want to make my film. Adobe Story Free works much the same way. When I'm ready to create a new project, I log in and click the New button. I can select what type of project I'm creating, and then I give that project a name. Classroom Teacher from Heck. I love it. Then I can click Create when I'm ready to go. When you create your document, you'll see the actual script page looks very much like Celtix, except in this case, the scene heading, action, character, parenthetical options are located in the upper right-hand corner, and your file, view, and edit options are located in the upper left-hand corner. Like Celtix, when you begin to type, it gives you some pre-typed options. So if I hit an I, interior pops up and I can select it. You may have been asking yourself, hey, wait a minute, what is that IE and that EI? Well, IE and EI just means that you're going to be in a car, because then we have to be both inside and outside at the same time. There are some other times when that option may be used, but EI and IE are mostly reserved for car scenes, and POV, well, that's a point of view scene, but they aren't used as often as interior and exterior. And when I hit return, just like Celtix, it switches to action. And so it works pretty much the same. And when I print my script, it will be formatted correctly for me to send off to my big Hollywood producer. Another great option would be to search out Microsoft Office script and screenplay templates online. Once you find them, you can go to the Microsoft Office webpage and download them many times for free. This is a great option, but what I don't like about this option is that when it's time to include new dialogue and new character names, you're going to have to cut and paste them, and you won't always be guaranteed that the format is correct. You're better off downloading a free version of Celtix or going to Adobe Story Free and signing up for free. This way you can guarantee that your screenplay will always be formatted correctly. Whether you're using Celtix, Adobe Story Free, or a template that you find online, all of these tools are there to make the formatting easy, because at the end of the day, it's about the story you're creating. Every scene you create should be an extension of your treatment. And your treatment should be the exploration of a particular theme. As you look at the scenes you're creating, and they don't always have to be created in order, Every one of them should be a moment from your treatment that gets your main character closer to or sometimes further away from a solution to his or her problem. And yes, we want to make sure as we bring our treatment to life and explore our theme that we format our script correctly, that we have slug lines, that we have scene descriptions, character cues and dialogue, sometimes parentheticals. If we do, we'll be guaranteed a successful final product. Well, that's it for a script. Remember, there are tools out there to help you format a script correctly. It's valuable to use those tools available because it will help you to focus on the story and not the format. And if all goes well, and you've used one of those tools, when you click print, your script will pop out in the correct format. Remember, it is still valuable to sit down with a teacher or a mentor to review whatever script you create, and be open to their criticism because it's always constructive criticism. As with treatments, the first draft is never the final draft. Well, thanks for being the teacher, and I hope to see you next time when we start exploring other aspects of the film industry.